This is going to illustrate some of the functions that we can do with our string variables. What I'm going to do first is I'm just going to read in some data inline. In other words, I'm not reading in from an external file or anything. Let's pull that back up over here. And we can see we just have a name variable and 5 entries. For good practice, we are going to name our data set, and we can see that that changed up here. And then let's say that what we'd like to do is, rather than have name be all in one column, we would really like to make a first name column and a last name column. So the first thing that we need to do is figure out where that space is between each of those names. So that first name and that's last name. And the reason being is because that's what we're going to use, like that location is what we're going to use to tell SPSS, how many characters to grab. So that way we don't have to individually go in and count, how many characters. So what we're going to do first is compute a new variable called space. And I'm just saying, here is look in this name variable, so the name variable, and find the space. So there is a space in between those two quotes. So if we run that, we notice that we get a new variable up here, named space, because that's what we wanted it to be named. And it gives us the location of the space in each of these names. So then we can go down here to calculating a first name variable. Since we're calculating a string variable, because first name is a string, it's using letters, we do need to start with saying, hey, we're about to make a variable and it's going to be a string. So we would start with this, and that's just letting SPSS know so it doesn't get cranky. And notice that when we run just this line, it creates this variable. Let me scoot that. It creates this variable, but it's empty because we haven't done anything yet. It's just kind of preparing the program for us. We can see it's a string. Then with this compute statement here, what we'll be doing is making this first name variable. And so we say that we would like to please split up, so subset this string variable. Specifically, we would like you to look at the name variable. We would like you to start at the first character. So wherever that, first character is going to be in the same place for everybody. And then we would like you to keep going until you hit the location of this space -1. So if we look at this first entry here, it's saying start here. So start at space character number 1. And then the space value is 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is where that space is. But we don't want to capture that space. We only want to capture the letters. So we're saying go to the space -1. So only capture 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for this instance. So if we do this, we've already done the string. If we just do this, then we see we populate our first name variable column. And then we do the same thing with the last name. So again, we need to start out with this string statement saying, hey, we're about to calculate a string variable. Just letting you know, please don't panic. And it's going to be, 12 characters long. If you overestimate, it's not the end of the world. So if you're like, I don't want to go through and count everybody's last name to figure out how long they are, I've got like 1,000 entries. Then you could just do like 20 or 25 here, and that should catch everyone. But so we need to start with this, and we see, let's make this a little bit bigger. All right. So we see our last name column has been prepared. And then we're going to do this compute statement. So we're still using this kind of subsetting function. And again, we're saying, hey, look at name. So look at the name column. And this time, we want you to start at whatever value is in space +1. So again, looking at this first one, space is number 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We don't want it to start at the space. We would like it to start at the next one over. So here's 7. And then since we didn't give it a third argument, we didn't tell it where to end, then it will just keep going until there's nothing more to grab. And we'll just take everything past that space plus 1. So we can run this, and we see that now our last name column has been computed for us. And, everything is how we would expect it to look. Perhaps silly right here, but we can also go the opposite way. We can also concatenate, so bring back together again. And so let's say that we had only been provided first name and last name, and we had not been provided them together. But we're like, yeah, we'd really like them to be together, please and thank you. So first we'd have to say, hey, we're making a string variable right here. And then this time we're going to use the concatenate or concat function. And what it takes as arguments in here is basically the order of things that you want stuck together. So we're saying we want a new variable called full name, which we can see up here. Let me scoot that. Please scoot. Please scoot. There we go. And we want the things in it to be first name. And then notice how I added a space here. I said, pull whatever's in first name, then put a space, then put whatever's in last name. If I didn't have this in between, what it would do is it would just like squash together the first name and the last name, and there would be no space between them. I mean, perhaps that's what you want. Like when you're making email addresses, sometimes that's how they're made, and so that's what you want. But if you're trying to recreate our name column, that's not what we want. We would like it to be separated by something. So if you want anything separated, then you put it here. And then, if we had a third variable or a fourth variable, we would just, continue adding however we wanted it put back together again. So if we run this, then we see we get our names put back together again like we might expect.